All right, it is now 7 p.m., so let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the 25th episode in our second ongoing webinar series for federal employees and retirees. My name is Quinn Ackerman. I'm one of the co-founders here at Parco, as well as the director of marketing. So it's great to see some familiar faces, as well as some new ones. For those of you who've been on before, we appreciate your patience as we go through this bit, introducing ourselves to those who are new. We are Parco. It stands for Pension Americans Retirement Company, and we're a financial services firm exclusively focused on retirement planning for federal employees and retirees. So whether you're just starting out your career, trying to figure out what you should enroll in or elect, you're near retirement, trying to get your affairs in order to retire, you're in retirement and trying to navigate the things that come with that, or you're everywhere in between along your career journey, we are here to help. And our goal is to be a holistic, all-in-one solution to all of your problems. So no longer do you have to go to one guy to get your mortgage refi, another one to do your taxes, someone to help you find better insurance, someone to manage your assets, someone to help you relocate in retirement, estate planning. We want to do all of that for you guys through the lens of federal employees and retirees and what you guys go through every day. And that's what we do. We've recently been featured in a lot of the below publications. We're really working on getting our name out there, and all we ask is that if you enjoy tonight's presentation, tell other folks about us. We do webinars every Wednesday, 7 p.m. We've got our webinar portal for folks to learn more, educate themselves, and become more informed about the things that are impacting them in the federal space. A few ground rules before we get started. You are more than welcome to ask questions in the question window. My colleagues, John and Danny, thank you both for being on this evening, are here to help you answer questions as they come up, and they most likely will come up. Our goal with each episode is to keep it to about 30 minutes, keep it digestible, but to go more in depth on any sort of topic. Anything that's 30 minutes long, though, is never going to encompass every little detail and nuance that may apply to you. So reach out to us, not just over chat, but to talk to us more one-on-one. This is what we do every day. We help feds strategize their situations, make the most out of every benefit and asset that they have, and make sure they're making the right decisions today that benefit them tomorrow. So please don't be shy, reach out. We're also going to send a survey email afterwards. This is going to ask for candid feedback about how we did, as well as ask about what kind of stuff do you guys want to see in the future? What kind of stuff is not being covered for feds that specifically apply to you or that should be tailored to you that you'd like to see? So please let us know. We've done a ton of episodes this year based on your guys' feedback. So you can include that in the survey email as well. Tonight's presentation is going to focus on action items that feds should tackle before the end of 2021. And we advertised on our Facebook page the 5 main items, and what I'm referring to here is 5 main categories, and here's what they're going to be. The first is going to be about I-bonds, which is something that many of you probably haven't heard about. The second is going to be RMD and Roth Essentials, something you're going to want to keep in mind. A few OPM and TSP housekeeping tips, some use or lose annual leave feedback as well, and then some life and health stuff that's always good to check in at the end of the year. So the first section tonight is I-bonds. Now, many of you may be asking, what the heck are I-bonds? Well, what they are essentially is inflation-linked savings bonds that are exclusively issued by the United States Treasury. You can't get this from Schwab, Fidelity. We can't offer them to you, TD Ameritrade. There is nowhere else you can get these except from the United States Treasury itself. And what these savings bonds are doing is they're earning a low fixed rate while at the same time earning an inflation rate that's going to change throughout the year. The reason we bring these up right now specifically, as I'm sure many of you have been seeing in the news, is that inflation has been skyrocketing. It has been a huge topic all across the news. Many of us are feeling it at the gas station, in the grocery stores. And what we want to do essentially is to try to hedge against that inflation. And the best way to do that is with investments in our assets. Now, These inflation-linked savings bonds are super awesome because you can't lose money. And right now they are yielding 7.12%. This is as of last week. For those of you folks who are aware of how safe investments tend to yield less, to have a completely safe savings bond like this yielding over 7% is crazy. And that's why we're making this announcement, shouting it from the rooftops and telling everyone we can about it. Something that's completely safe, that's a savings bond, earning 7% is crazy. So here's kind of how they work. There are limits to how much of them you can buy. In any given year, you're allowed to purchase up to $10,000 in I bonds per person per year. So if you are a household, you and your spouse or significant other can each purchase 10 grand worth. And the reason you want to do it now is it's based on the calendar year. So you can buy 10,000 for yourself in 2021 and then another 10,000 for yourself in 2022. The way they work is that you have to at least have them held for 12 months, but you don't have to sell them. You can keep them held as long as you would like. And whenever you do decide to withdraw them and use those gains and that money that you've earned, it's only going to be taxed at the federal income level upon that withdrawal. What's also really cool about it is that there's no state or local taxes. Let's see here. Come on, little guy. It looks like my slide is frozen. There we go. Okay. Just to give you an idea of how big of a deal this is, let's say you've invested $10,000 in this I bond throughout the year. You would be experiencing $700 in growth at that current yield. Now, we put this little asterisk here because the inflation adjustment rate is going to change every 6 months. But based on what it's done in the past, that's $700 in growth. So for those of you on tonight who have sat through the first 7 minutes of this presentation, if you have $10,000 you can invest, whether it be from your TSP or over 59 and a half, and an IRA, savings accounts, anything like that, you have just made $700. To give you an idea of how big of a deal that is, let's say you had $10,000 in the G fund and we watched that growth year to date. That growth year to date is a little over 1%. So that would be $100 in growth as compared to this $700 in growth. So this is huge. You could go directly to ustreasurydirect.com, I believe is the website. It's at the end of the presentation. So I'll make sure to hold it there for a second for you guys. You can also ask for it in the chat window and we'll send it to you. You have to buy it directly from there. The next thing we want to talk about are some RMD tips and Roth essentials that are going to come with required minimum distributions. Now, for those of you folks who are on tonight who are retired from the federal government, those of you who are 72 years of age or older, you are subject to required minimum distributions. And this is money that you must withdraw from retirement accounts starting at age 72. Your required minimum distribution is due on the 31st of December of this year. So make sure if you have not taken out at least your required minimum distribution of this year and you need to do so by the end of the year. There's some crazy penalties if you don't. There's some forms you can fill out if you need to fix it, but it's a big pain in the butt and it's a lot easier to do it right the first time. I also put another asterisk here as well, just because if this is your first year of RMDs, they give you a grace period to figure it out a little bit. So you have to until April 1st of 2022 to get your first one done. But for those of you who have been doing RMDs actively for a while now, make sure you get that distribution in before the end of the year. The reason we also are bringing this up applies to feds who are still working as well and who are not subject to RMD. So as a refresher for some of you folks who maybe haven't been on some of our other webinars, there is one type of retirement account that's not subject to RMDs. That's a Roth IRA. If you have money in a Roth IRA and it's your Roth IRA, you're the original owner of it, the government cannot tell you to take money out of your account. So for those of you folks who have maybe a lot more traditional assets, whether that's in a traditional TSP or a traditional IRA, you may be thinking to yourself, well, shoot, that kind of sucks. You know, most of my assets are traditional tax deferred. How does this Roth IRA thing really, why does it matter to me? And the reason is because you can actually avoid your RMDs with a process that's known as Roth conversion. We can spend hours talking about it. It's somewhat of a dense topic, so I'm only going to cover it really lightly here. If you have more questions and you want to know more about how this strategy works and how you'd implement it, reach out. But what it is essentially is you're converting your traditional funds slowly into Roth accounts, Roth IRAs specifically, over time. You pay the requisite taxes on the amount you're converting, which isn't a big deal because your traditional tax deferred accounts have this embedded tax liability anyway. So you're essentially stripping that tax liability that's in there. You want to do this slowly over time each year, utilizing your current tax bracket. And the goal truly is that you're reducing the amount of assets you have in your traditional IRA, the amount that would be subject to those RMDs, while you're increasing your tax-free, RMD-free funds over time. And the reason we wanted to bring this up specifically in this presentation is that if you have Roth conversions that you need to get done, make sure they are done before the end of the year. On a similar note, those of you who may be wanting to do Roth conversions from your TSP, you go to that traditional IRA, then you get into the Roth IRA, you are going to want to execute those now. We are seeing crazy huge processing delays with TSP. Give yourself that extra cushion. Things are going to start getting a little hairy around December 1st. If you do not give yourself at least a month for TSP to process your withdrawals, get you that money to execute the Roth conversion, which requires additional paperwork, you may miss the deadline. If the Roth conversion is not done by December 31st, it will not count. So keep that in mind. One thing I forgot there. Let me go back to that previous slide. The one thing I want to bring up for all of you is that even if you're not in a stage where you are going to be doing Roth conversions yet, you want to open a Roth IRA to give yourself the flexibility of that down the line. It doesn't matter how much you fund it with. It doesn't matter even where you open it. You can open it Fidelity, TD, Schwab. We can help you open one with us. The point is that you open it. And the reason is that all Roth IRAs have that 5-year vesting schedule. You want to have your Roth IRA open for 5 years before any of the gains and interests are tax-free. We bring this up in this presentation specifically because if you haven't opened one yet, get it open before the end of the year. The 5-year vesting schedule is based on calendar years, not actually the length of time. So as long as you get your Roth IRA open by December 31st, 2021 counts as your first year of vesting. And then that very next day on January 1st, 2022, you're at 2 years of vesting right there. So that is going to be crucial for those of you who don't have Roth IRAs open. Get one open, fund it with the minimum, $25, $50. Just get that clock started. Now let's go through a few OPM and TSP housekeeping tips. These are more anecdotal. We do have a little bit of data that OPM has released. We're working with a lot of folks who are going through this right now. So we just want to provide a few tips on dealing with these institutions. There are crazy wait times and processing delays at OPM. OPM just released another data sheet. It's also in our works cited if you guys would like to see it, where they talk about the processing times for claims. This one's referring to retirement claims specifically, but this is a trend across the board. In October of 2021, they have released that it is taking 95 days to process retirement claims. This is absurd. So if you have things that you need to get done with at OPM, do them sooner rather than later. On that note as well, try to utilize your HR instead if you're still actively employed. So when you're employed, you can often utilize your HR. Once you're retired, OPM essentially becomes your HR and you can no longer interact with your agency's HR. So if some of you folks on tonight are looking to retire December 31st, 2021, A, get your paperwork in sooner rather than later. And B, if there are things that you can do with HR now, do them now as opposed to having to deal with OPM in retirement. The few extra minutes now are going to save you a world of headache. Things you can take advantage of now are changing your allotments. So if you've got allotments on your paycheck, that are going to checkings accounts, savings accounts, things that you're not planning to carry with you in retirement, contact HR and change those now. If we've got folks on tonight that are in the process of or are considering executing military buybacks, please, please, please get that process rolling while you're still working. You get to go through your HR. You don't have to go through OPM. It will be significantly faster. Same thing with FEGLI changes. If you need to change beneficiaries, change the amount of coverage that you have, complete a FEGLI change form, you can submit that to your HR while you're still working. So it makes a lot of sense to do that now. If you guys need help with any of these things, we're helping folks do it all the time, getting some last minute stuff in before they retire. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. Same thing is going to apply to your TSP accounts and TSP withdrawals. Many of you may be considering taking out some extra TSP withdrawals for the holiday season. Get those requests in now. We are seeing folks having to wait 60 days before these funds are getting sent to them. We have seen processing delays before, but it almost feels like it's getting worse year after year. We still have folks waiting to get money from the TSP. So if you've got some ideas about funds you want to take out, maybe you're putting towards gifts for family or friends, maybe you just want to have a little extra cash on hand, get those requests in. You will not regret it. On that same note, the end of the year is a great time to revisit your TSP contributions. We wanted to include this graph here just to kind of show you guys the power of savings and what this can do for you over the long term. So what we're graphing here is if you're contributing $200 every month to your TSP account, and let's say on average your account's growing by 5%, look at the difference in growth over these time periods: 15 years, 25 years, 35 years, 45 years. I'm going to point out the difference in between 25 years and 35 years for you. Let's say you've been contributing for over 25 years. You've contributed technically $60,000 and your account has grown by up to 117. That's the power of compound growth. Now, let's say you contribute for an extra 10 years. You've only contributed $20,000 more dollars, but your account has almost doubled. Now, that's the power of compound growth. And you see that here with each additional 10 years that you can contribute. So everyone should be contributing at least 5%. That's a no-brainer. That's your free match. That doesn't mean you should stop there, though. If you can do more, do more. And the longer you can do more, the more that this will benefit you down the line. Save more and save often. It'll be interesting to see what 2022's contribution limits are. Right now, you're at $1,000 per pay period or $26,000 a year. Any extra you can do, you will not regret. So another action item for the end of 2021 is see if there's a way for you to increase your TSP contributions. The next thing we're going to talk about is annual leave. Everybody, and sometimes it's agency specific, sometimes it's employee specific, has an annual leave rollover limit. So postal craft employees, actually, I'll get to them last. There's an exception for them. Non-postal employees, for most agencies, most of you guys can roll over 240 hours. If you're working in 2022 and you have more than 240 hours, take some time off. Make sure you get rid of that use or lose. That's a benefit that you've worked for. Postal supervisors can roll over 560 hours. T38 employees can roll over 685 hours. Postal craft employees, if we've got any letter carriers, mail handlers, mail processors, clerks, postal craft employees, you guys have an exception in place right now. Instead of being able to roll over a maximum of 440 hours into 2022, you can actually roll over an additional 80 hours for 520 hours in 2022. Even more than that, and again, this is specific to postal craft employees, if you are still actively working, you have an opportunity to sell back those 80 hours at the end of 2021. We've actually found this information on a memorandum between the National Postal Mail Handlers Union. There is a document. It's also on our works cited. Let us know if you'd like to see it. You can sell back these additional 80 hours, even though you're still working, you must meet two requirements. You must be at the maximum carryover ceiling at the start of the leave year. So you must have at least that 440, and I guess this would mean you're 520 at this time or at the end of the pay period. And you must have used less than 75 sick leave hours in 2021. If you meet these requirements, you can actually sell this back for a lump sum, even if you're not retiring. Now let's talk about some life and health housekeeping tips. We have just started the annual open season for healthcare. So your FEHB plans started on November 8th. You are allowed to make elections and changes up until December 13th of this year. Your new elections will kick in the start of 2022. Whether you are employed or retired, you are absolutely allowed to take advantage of this open season. We wanted to make a list here of some things that may have happened to you or may have been going on in your life that could cue you in that you want to investigate this open season a little bit more. If you have a family plan and you have dependents that are no longer under the age of 26, your youngest is no longer 26, they have aged out of coverage. You are definitely going to want to change your family plan down to either self plus one or self. Don't pay for premiums where you're not covered. If you got married this year or you got divorced, you need to add or remove a spouse to your health care. The annual open season is a great time to do that. Changes in personal health. Take a look at your current healthcare plan. There are a ton of plans out there. OPM will have your specific documents in there. You can read through the fine print. Maybe you got healthier this year than you've been, or maybe there's some new health conditions that you need to take care of that your current health plan isn't covering in the way that you'd like. Now is the time to shop. Now is the time to look to see what plan makes the most sense for the health concerns that you have going on in your life right now. And another thing to keep in mind is any sort of changes to in-network care. Some providers, some plans are fine with you going in-network or out of network. Some are not. Some just want you to be in-network. Make sure that your doctors are still part of that in-network community if you have an in-network only plan. If not, you may want to ask your doctor what kind of plans that they're covered under that will be in network, or you may want to change your doctor if you really like your healthcare. Either way, look into this and make sure that these things align. Open season is also a time to make updates to your dental plans, vision plans, and long-term care plans. So don't forget about that as well. This is a good time to do it. FEGLI, your Federal Employees Group Life Insurance. This is a really great time to double check on your option C. Option C is family coverage that is going to cover a spouse, $5,000 per unit, and any dependent kids, $2,500 per unit. The thing to pay attention to here is your kids need to be under the age of 22. If you do not have any kids under the age of 22, they do not have option C coverage available to them. On that same token, let's say you don't have any kids under the age of 22, and let's say you don't have a spouse to cover. You are technically paying for coverage you don't have. Same thing applies if you are no longer married with no kids either. You are paying for coverage you don't have. Take a look at this. If you are finding that you are in the boat where you have option C that you are paying for with no insurable interest, reach out to us. We can help you pursue an option C reimbursement. It involves filling out a FEGLI change form and sending in a letter notifying HR and OPM of the amount of time that you've been paying for coverage that you don't have. You're owed a reimbursement. So please reach out to us. We can help. I know I covered a lot of different topics this evening. There's a lot going into the end of the year. We're coming up on some deadlines on December 31st and at the beginning of December with healthcare open season. So if you have questions, please reach out to us. We are here to help you get these things accomplished before the end of the year. I always like to say this, the few minutes you take today, as much as a pain in the butt it can feel when you're working full time and you're busy, or even when you're retired and you don't want to be worrying about it, you never regret taking the extra time to plan. So reach out to us. We're here to help you, and we're here to help you optimize everything you've got going on in your life. Here's our works cited for this evening. I'm going to leave this on for a second. We can also copy and paste this in the chat window. You need the annual leave source. Here it is here. If you want to look into these I-bonds, go to Treasury Direct. Here's the website you're going to want to look at. Let's see, what was the other one? If you need to go to open season, check here. And I think there was one more that I was supposed to point out to you guys, but if you remember it and I haven't done it, oh, here it was. If you want to look into the retirement processing times with OPM, this link right here is their latest PDF that shows the chart of how long those claims are taking. So a lot of great sources here if you guys need them. We've been making this announcement as well. The webinar portal is now live. So every single presentation we have ever done, you can now watch in the portal whenever you would like. All you need to do is scan this QR code with your phone or visit this link here. It's free. You just use your email to sign up. It'll take a few days probably before this one is in the portal, but it soon will be. So if you want to watch this again, you can absolutely do so. Here are some upcoming webinar topics that we're going to be talking about. Federal retirement strategies HR can't share. Unfortunately, HR is bound by rules and things that they are allowed and not allowed to tell you. It is to no fault of their own, but rules they have to follow. So we're here to fill in those gaps, talk about everything that HR isn't allowed to do. We're going to cover taxes, some interesting TSP tips and tricks, how to navigate this tumultuous TSP landscape we're in right now, particularly with the processing delays we're seeing. We're going to talk about mortgage refinance, when you should consider it, when it's going to be beneficial for you, or when you should know you're good with what you are at and what you're doing. And then the last one is retirement paperwork workshop. We do these the last Sunday of every month. Our co-founder, Danny Hample, leads these. He will walk you through step by step how to fill out retirement paperwork. So if you're interested, it's on the last Sunday of every month, 6 p.m. Eastern. We're happy to add you to that. If you need to reach out to us, you can email us at info@goparco.com. Call us at 833-GO-PARCO, 467-2726. A real person always answers the phone. Or you can visit us on our website, goparco.com. If you need that webinar portal, here's the QR code. And if you need any of these sources, let us know in the chat and we're happy to send them to you. John, Danny, and I are going to hang out in the chat window answering the questions that you guys have. We respect everyone's privacy, so we will answer them silently and quietly in the chat. So if you have those questions, put them there and we are here to answer them. If you don't, we hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. We applaud everyone for being on this evening, and we're getting to the home stretch at the end of the year. Have a good one, everyone.